L-Acoustics has secured a series of legal victories against counterfeit manufacturers. Courts in France and Germany, they ruled in favor of L-Acoustics, mandating the destruction of infringing products and awarding damages.
One thing that really struck me in the article, what they said the defense was for this, and it's like straight out of The Sopranos, their defense was, those counterfeit speakers, we weren't selling them, we were renting them. And the court's like, no, you can't rent them, we're destroying them. But they've showed up in court and said that to the judge with a straight face.
Yes, and they said it with a French accent, which is now playing in my head. Thank you very much.
Parlez-vous le français?
No. The dangers of counterfeit AV, getting your AV degree, and a brand new connector. All that and more next on AV Week. This is AV Week, episode 715, recorded Friday, May 2nd, 2025. Emotional Support Cable. This is AV Week, your source for the latest in AV news and insights. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. Kicking off this week's top story in Pro AV, Kramer has announced tariff-related pricing adjustments in response to the reinstated U.S. tariffs on certain electronics imported from China. The company will add a 15% tariff surcharge to all product lines sold in the U.S. Kramer says the increase on affected products will begin May 28th, 2025. Kramer's leadership acknowledged the impact this may have on integrators and clients, emphasizing that while the situation is beyond their control, the company remains committed to transparency. In a statement, Kramer said they are, quote, working closely with distribution and channel partners, unquote, to communicate changes and minimize disruptions. If you're locked into specific gear lists, you may need to account for pricing variances or look into alternate solutions. In other news from the manufacturing side, Mimo Monitors has announced that its full lineup of displays and tablets are now TAA compliant. That means their products meet the Trade Agreements Act requirements, making them eligible for purchase by U.S. government agencies and federal contractors. The company says this move reflects its commitment to secure, U.S.-friendly sourcing, an increasingly important factor for buyers in government, healthcare, and education sectors where compliance isn't just a bonus, it's a requirement. Mimo's TAA certification covers all screen sizes and formats, from small format touch displays to their digital signage lineup. The shift not only opens doors for new contracts, but also positions them well as procurement policies tighten. Shure announced this week that its IntelliMix room kits are now officially shipping and certified for Microsoft Teams rooms. These pre-configured bundles pair Shure's MXA 920 ceiling array with the IntelliMix Room DSP software and Hudley camera, delivering a turnkey audio experience tailored for meeting spaces. What set these kits apart is the all-in-one software-driven approach. By moving DSP processing into the PC, integrators can reduce rack clutter and streamline installs while still getting Shure's signature beamforming and auto mixing performance. The kits are available in small, medium, and large room configurations and ship with all required licenses. Shure says the goal is to deliver consistency and simplicity, especially for standardized deployments across enterprises or campuses. For AV teams rolling out hybrid collaboration spaces, this means one more way to meet UC platform requirements out of the box. And we wrap up this week with a look at how one university is rethinking the campus experience through AV and automation. UCLA has partnered with Place OS to power a smart campus initiative aimed at improving how students, faculty, and staff interact with the physical environment. The system brings together AV control, building automation, and real-time data to create a more responsive and efficient campus. From lecture hall scheduling to occupancy-based lighting and climate control, the platform integrates with sensors and building systems to automate key functions, all accessible through a unified interface. Executive Director, Digital Spaces for UCLA, Dr. Joe Way, says, quote, as technologists, it is our duty to view the campus not as a series of disconnected venues, but as a single, interwoven ecosystem designed to foster collaboration, innovation, and community, end quote. One standout feature, the ability for users to book rooms, trigger AV presets, and personalize spaces from a mobile device. For integrators and AV and IT teams, this is a case study in how modern platforms can scale, connecting diverse systems into one experience that's smarter, safer, and more adaptable. That's our news roundup. We'll take a short break and be back with our roundtable panel. This is AV Week. Welcome back. Now to bring in our fantastic roundtable discussion with us to discuss the news and information we have gathered this week. First and foremost, Jennifer Weaver from Laya Technologies, and also our own AV Career Mastermind. Welcome, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. I'm glad to be here this week.
Absolutely, thank you. And a really recent episode, I think about a week ago, we posted a new one, so check that out. Also with us is Mr. David Maldo from Let's Do Video. Welcome, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I got to hang out with Maldo at Enterprise Connect, and we'll, of course, see him at InfoComm, which we'll talk about here at the end. And last but not least, a young man I got to meet through our mutual friend, Mr. Mike Tomei. Andrew Page is from Empirical AV. Welcome, sir.
Hey, thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely. Andrew's a former higher education tech manager, AV designer, and has a brand new piece of software, which we'll also talk about at the end. He'll be at InfoComm, and we'll find out ways to connect with him there. Our first story that we're going to talk about in this roundtable, we have a new video interface because we needed one. A new video interface spec coming out of China called GPMI is making waves by claiming performance levels that surpass both HDMI 2.1 and DisplayPort 2.1, developed with support from major panel manufacturers and Chinese regulatory bodies. The GPMI standard promises lower latency, higher refresh rates, and more open license modeling. While currently positioned for domestic use, just for the record, so was HDMI 25 years ago, industry analysts are watching closely to see if this becomes a serious global contender or just another regional outlier. For integrators and tech managers, the big question is what happens if and when this alternate transport standard starts to disrupt the HDMI and DisplayPort monopolies. Maldo, we'll start with you on this. I mentioned the fact that HDMI did start out as a consumer spec. There have been a couple reports out that there are some security issues with HDMI, right? According to the folks at GPMI, there's also some data rate transfer issues, right? According to the spec, GPMI is faster. So could this standard realistically kind of push its way and find its way into the professional AV market?
I'm glad you mentioned from the consumer, being a consumer standard, because I looked at it from the consumer perspective, and the story, it made me mad. Then I was okay with it. Then it made me mad again.
It was like a good novel, right? All sorts of emotions.
Right. It did the full cycle. When we got our first computers in the early 80s, okay, every year we need different cables because this stuff is new when we're developing it, and getting data from a monitor to a computer. Oh my goodness, that is, or I should say the other way around. And I'm like, okay, I'll switch standards. I'll get a new cable every year. I'm with you guys. I'm supporting you. It's been 70, 80, 90 years already. Get the cables figured out. So when I see there's a new cable, I'm like, I'm done. I don't even want to read the article. But then I saw, made me happy, USB-C. And I thought, oh, okay, that's what I'm standardizing on. I love something. I'm not a cable nerd, but I like USB-C. It's upside down and right side up. It's not. It's nice. It's a weird thing to say, but it's something that I have an emotional. I like it, and that's what I'm building a new PC. I'm going to have a bunch of USB-C. So I saw this worked on USB-C, and I'm like, thumbs up. I'm happy. I can transfer now. But then I saw, if you want the super sauce that makes it so special, you got to get a proprietary little thingy that doesn't work with USB-C. So all the stuff that makes it cool, and some of it might be the security stuff you're talking about, but the nerdy stuff, the speeds, that kind of stuff, it's not USB-C. So now I'm mad again.
I love Maldo. Jennifer, same kind of question here.
I did the same thing, right? I read it and I thought,
Wait. You went through the same emotional roller coaster that Maldo went through.
Funny enough, I did, right? And you would not think I would do that. Well, the one thing that stood out for me was the 8K. I'm like, really? We're bringing this back up? Where is their 8K? Who's doing 8K? Is it really feasible right now, right? When I'm looking at what my my son's doing in high school as far as what they're teaching, what higher ed's doing. It's not there. So yes, I loved the USB-C. Great. I've got so many USB-C things going on and cables. But I look at my drawer of cables that I have that is in my office and in my kitchen, and I just think this is another cable that's going to get thrown in a drawer, or I'm not going to want to get rid of it because you never know when you're going to need it. And the word proprietary scares me. I don't like it. It means cost is going to go up. It means something is going to be very expensive in my mind, and I'm not going to want to buy it because I'm going to have all of these other things that are proprietary for it. So,
but hang on for a second, because
yeah.
I understand what you're saying about the proprietary connector being problematic. Everything, with the exception of RJ45, and we can talk about Cat 5, Cat 6, Cat 7, just one of those. But they are all a version of RJ45, I believe, up to Cat 8, and I could be wrong about that, but they're all versions of it. But HDMI is a proprietary connector, right? SDI is it's a BNC, but it's proprietary-ish, right?
Right. But I look at it when you say proprietary, and I look at it, it's going to be certain things that are probably going to have it, that you need to have that cable. If you look at it, my computer has HDMI, my TV has HDMI, my son's PlayStation has HDMI. So there's all of these things that have an HDMI connection that I'm okay with having all of these HDMI cables, and the same thing with USB-C. This to me just seems like it's not going to be on everything, and if it is on that one or two things that you want, how much is that cable going to cost to ensure you're getting the speeds and the feeds that the proprietary portion is going to have?
Andy, I want to take a little different stab at this. Again, Andy used to be in higher education. How do alternate standards like this, as they're coming down the pipeline, how do they reshape or shape your thinking in general as you're trying to plan for this year's deployment, but also make sure that the classroom or the lecture hall you're deploying and designing today is not future-proof, because I've learned not to use that term, but is viable for several years down the line when we have these new standards coming at us?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with the infrastructure that you put into this space when you're building it out. You have to make sure that you're putting in the right pathways to the right places, you're pulling the right cable. You were talking about category cable, making sure you have some sort of category cable, enough of them going to the right places so that you can support these future technologies. And what's going from that last, we say not last mile, but last 3 feet from the tabletop, from the lectern top to the device, that's going to change over time. But if you have that infrastructure in place, then hopefully you're just changing an endpoint, and that you can kind of keep up with that and deal with that. I think the real havoc comes when you get the devices, the BYODs, coming out with a new firmware update, for this new technology, for this new display technology, and suddenly half of your rooms don't work anymore, or you have some intermittent problem that you're trying to track down, and that becomes a real pain. So these new technologies, although they have to come, we need, it's inevitable that this happens. They do create serious and significant challenges for people who are designing spaces, especially when you're designing 5 years out, right? This project is not going to hit for another 5 years. What do I put into the design today? Yeah,
I have a designer friend of mine who would answer that by saying fiber. That's all you put. Everything else is fungible, right?
Right.
So,
yeah.
Sticking with China, China has introduced the Smart AV degree program. They're launching a new university degree in Smart Audiovisual Systems Engineering. It's part of a broader overhaul of its AI and digital tech education. It's set to roll out this fall at multiple institutions. The program combines AV fundamentals with artificial intelligence, machine vision, and data processing, preparing students for next-gen roles in smart buildings, immersive environments, and automated control system. It's a move that signals how seriously China views AV as a strategic industry, blending traditional signal flow knowledge with emerging AI-driven workflows. For integrators and educators, it also raises questions about how other countries are or are not preparing the next wave of AV professionals. Jennifer, I saw this story and I thought immediately of you for a number of different reasons, not just because she hosts our AV Career Mastermind, but Jennifer is heavily involved in educating the next generation, in recruiting the next generation. Simple question: should AV-focused programs like this be adopted globally, like in other countries or in other areas?
Yes, like you're not going to hear me say no. This is yes.
Then how do we get there?
We've been trying. You look at people, like Belmont University has a audio engineering technology degree. Pace University is trying to do a audio visual technology minor, eventually a major, right? The industry is so vast. And when we talk about audio visual information technology as an umbrella, there's so many things: live events, audio, radio, music, it's higher ed, K through 12, all of those things. So when you put somebody in just a general audio engineering, they feel like that's all I can do. But where's all of the cross curricula of, you can take what you know with audio, you can learn a little bit of the video, and if you don't want to travel around with a band and do their audio engineering, then you can take what you know and you can work at a higher ed institution. You could, work at any organization that has offices across the country because they're going to need conference rooms. So I love what this is. We are as the United States, as everybody knows, if you look in education, we are not at the top. We are at the bottom of the list when it comes to it. And this is why other countries are surpassing us, because they're able to adopt it and advance it faster than what we can here in the US. So whether it's a degree, whether it's a university saying technical program, we're going to offer you some type of technical degree, it doesn't matter. It just needs to happen, because there's not enough of it going.
Andy, same kind of question here is how do we get, whether it's the states, whether it's the EU, but from a government institution, a government body, to take a look at both AV and AI and all the other smart buildings and smart cities initiatives. How do we get them to take this seriously, and also start developing some sort of education tracks?
It's going to be harder without a Department of Education.
Well, there is that.
I didn't want to touch that one. But that just did a whole ramp of other feelings and emotions, so I couldn't go there, but you are true.
Yeah, no, I think, our field is kind of notorious for not having a pipeline for developing talent and bringing people into this industry. We all come in from various angles, as you were saying, from technical theater. Jennifer, you were going through the types of fields that we come in from, the allied fields, IT and broadcast, television and radio, et cetera. So yeah, having a program for that, I think it's something that needs to be developed. The curriculum needs to be developed. I think there's a place for maybe a trade association. If we had like a strong trade association that wanted to take on this challenge and help, work with the higher education institutions to develop a curriculum, that would be a good step forward. I think it's definitely something that I've heard, numerous concerns from colleagues over the years, that we just do not have a way to develop talent. And when we're hiring, we're always looking across all of these different fields to try and find people to bring in, and maybe because we know that we're not going to find the person that actually has experience as an AV field engineer or as an AV installer, because those people, they're snatched up and they're fully employed.
And Andy, this is probably 10, 12 years ago, former CEO of Avixa, called Infocom, then Dr. Randy Lemke, they had started to develop in the late 2000s or early 2010s a program like you were talking about, and they were met with a little bit of success, not great, and because of that lack of success, that kind of went by the wayside. So they did have something, not an actual full 4-year degree, but it was a start of something, right? So there have been some, at least from an institutional standpoint, some tries, some attempts at that. Maldo, you've got an interesting story on how you got to AV. You are the prototypical, I just fell into this, just like the rest of us. So how do we start it without worrying about what the government does or worrying about what this trade association does or this union does, how can we start this at the maybe even the local level where each of us are, right? I mentioned it before, I'm in the Midwest in St. Louis, Jen and David are in Florida, Andy's out east. So how do we do that at our own local level?
Well, unfortunately, I think it does take big infrastructural change. I don't think it's the kind of thing where, hey, everyone could just kind of figure this out on YouTube. Or that's not that's what you're saying, but I came prepared for this one. I have two quick anecdotes on this that kind of, and this might be the way to get it started on local level for people to understand the importance of it. The first is something I've been seeing floating around on the internet. It's Tim Cook speaking, Tim Cook from Apple, and it's not AI. He's actually speaking, and he's answering the big question. Like if I had him in a room, the question I would ask, which is, dude, you're exploiting cheap labor. That's why you make them all the way across the ocean, right? Come on, you make the iPhones across the ocean because you're exploiting cheap labor, and that's not cool, is it? And that's not the way it was asked. That's the way I would ask it. But his answer was, it's not really about that. It's about the skills. It's not something you learn on the job. It's not a 6 weeks training program. It's like a trade school here. People go to school for years and years to learn the skills needed to build the components of an iPhone. I can open up a factory here and I can say we're hiring at any rate and there wouldn't be enough people. There's not enough people in the United States of America who know how to do this. And they're not being trained to do this. So I have to build them over there.
I've used this term before. I am a big dumb American, 100%, right? I'm not putting that on the rest of you three. I am 100% a big dumb American. There are times that I forget a couple of things. Number one, the size of the U.S. is ginormous from a geographical and a pure size, square footage, square kilometer point of view. We are also not very populous when it comes to a couple of other countries, one being China, the other being India. Both of those countries have over 1 billion humans. The U.S. has roughly 330. I am not great at math, but that's roughly a third, right? So Cook has a bit of a point there. Go ahead.
If he's saying he's hiring, if we're willing to do it, and none of us know how to do it, it's again going back to local level. How do we fix it at a local level? We got to go to the schools, and that's the second anecdote. Is I was having a conversation with my father-in-law. He's a very interesting character, and we was talking about he was in school. He was a school kid when Sputnik happened. And that was a huge shift mentally because before that it was like United States, USA, we were the undisputed leaders in technology. We had the nuclear bomb. We won the war. Everything science, we were the winners. And all of a sudden we lost the space race. What's going on? And I said, what was that like? And he said, math and science class got real hard, real fast. And I think about that a lot. It was a major shift in our country. The reaction to our country was, we got to start teaching the kids how to do good math. And then we got good at technology again for a while. So it's got to be a big change.
You're right. It has to start, and I have a math degree. I was a math teacher. So we're not teaching our kids the skills that they need. We're teaching them to take a test and pass a state test and a standardized test. And they're trying to say, how to figure out how 2 + 2 is 4. 2 + 2 is 4. I don't need to get into a long definition of why 2 + 2 is 4. But it is, we're not giving the education to the younger generation of what all of this cool stuff is that they're doing. No, they can't learn a lot of it on YouTube, but man, some of these kids on YouTube and these TikTokers that are doing certain things with computers and especially getting into the gaming aspect of it, they know a heck of a lot more about some of that than a lot of us do. So we have to hone in on that and not force them to think they have to be a doctor, a lawyer, or the next CEO or the next influencer, because that stuff's gonna, influencers are gonna go away eventually, because it seems like it's a fad. But
how dare you?
I know, right?
Knocking on Maldo's, his
Sorry.
livelihood.
No, I'm a content creator now.
Ah, there we go.
Content creator is completely different.
Yeah. Last story really quickly. L-Acoustics has secured a series of legal victories against counterfeit manufacturers, this time in Europe, reinforcing its stance on protecting product integrity and brand trust. The company's legal actions targeted unauthorized copies of its loudspeaker designs being sold online and through gray market distributors. Courts in France and Germany, L-Acoustics is headquartered in France, they ruled in favor of L-Acoustics, mandating the destruction of infringing products and awarding damages. For AV pros, it's a reminder that counterfeit gear isn't just a legal issue, it really is a threat to performance, safety, and long-term client satisfaction. Andy, I'll start with you, and again, pull your college and your university AV tech hat on. What are some red flags when it comes to counterfeit gear? Is it the logo's upside down? It's spelled differently. How do end users and IT managers make sure that what they're pulling out of the box is the real thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, we've we just buy from reputable resellers and never really kind of have to worry about that too much. I can't say that I've been in a situation where I've suspected anything to be counterfeit. But I have to say that this is a real big win for L-Acoustics and for the industry at large. I think it's really important that we are protecting these strong brands. L-Acoustics is a pioneer in the beamform, line array technology. I think it's important that those people that take those risks, that go out there and do that work and come up with these new ways of doing things, that we give them the protections that they deserve so that they can continue to provide those products and have that strong brand and not have that brand undermined or have the trust eroded. So I think all across the board, that's a big win. That's a good thing. I'm a big fan of strong institutions and having things that, that will help all of society, including having, as silly as it sounds, a really strong speaker brand that's doing really great work, but that also can defend its intellectual property.
Maldo, same question is how do folks make sure that what they're getting is the right product?
I mean, for a typical consumer, you might want to bring in a consultant and an expert. Some of this stuff might be kind of tricky, but this is very serious. I joke around a lot, but I picture myself on both sides. Working at a company, we work so hard to establish a brand, and then it's like, oh, your equipment hurt someone. Not just it did a bad job, it hurt someone. And from a consumer, it is a safety issue. It could blow up and hurt someone's ears. But I was looking at the article; it was structural. These things are big and heavy. It could topple over. They weren't using the right kind of steel. So it is super serious. But one thing that really struck me in the article, my previous career, I was an attorney, and I looked at what they said the defense was for this, and it's like straight out of The Sopranos. Their defense was, what? Those counterfeit speakers? We weren't selling them. We were renting them. Hey, come on, that's allowed, right? And the court's like, no, you can't rent them. We're destroying them. But they've showed up in court and said that to the judge with a straight face.
Yes, and they said it with a French accent, which is now playing in my head. Thank you very much. Jennifer, what responsibilities do manufacturers, do distributors, do dealers have in validating the product authenticity before they put it into a system?
Well, I mean, I work for a manufacturer now, and I've worked for manufacturers in the past. And I think, from the manufacturer standpoint, they need to, as soon as they're getting grumblings anywhere from their customers or their dealers or their distributors or whomever that something's not right, that manufacturer needs to jump on it quick and figure out what the issue is, what the problem is, and is it their product. I was shocked actually because this was the first time that I've heard that there is the possibility that AV equipment can be counterfeit. I've seen other things be counterfeit, right? Love my purses that are not real, but that's not doing any harm to anybody. So this type of technology that can be counterfeit, like manufacturers have to jump on it. I think that's the first thing, as soon as there's a question. And from the consumer standpoint, understand that it could be counterfeit at this point now. And, don't jump so hard on the manufacturer, but do your due diligence.
That'll be a good place to stop. Thank you all so much. David Maldo from Let's Do Video. How do people connect with you, and how do they see your fantastic videos, sir?
Hey, I don't. Point your phone at this thing with the camera.
Well, we also do an audio version, David. So that would help.
Okay. How do we do QR codes over audio? Well, anyway,
we don't.
I'm David.
You say it out loud.
We just don't. There's got to be a way. I'm going to
Physically
find a
say
way.
it out loud.
10001.
Oh, there we go. Leave it to Andy. Okay.
All right, find me at Let's Do Video. Let'sDoVideo.com is the website, and Let's Do Video on YouTube is where the content is.
There we are. Thank you. Jennifer Weaver, Laya Technologies. Thank you, ma'am. As always, how do people connect with you? How do they connect with Laya? And how do they find your fantastic podcast?
Yeah, so Jennifer Weaver on LinkedIn, you can always find me there. I'm posting. I am Jennifer at LaiaTechNA.com. So that's LAIA TechNA.com. And yes, please tune into my podcast, AV Career Masterminds. You can find me on any of your podcast stations and on AVNation. And yes, we have a booth at Infocom. We are 4169. So come past and see us.
Very cool. Mr. Page, thank you, sir. Nice to meet you and have you on. Where do people connect with you, and where do they find Empirical AV?
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah, Empirical is at empirical-av.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, Andrew Page at LinkedIn. And then we'll also be at Infocom. We'll be at booth 5088.
All right, very good. For me, for Tim Albright, don't follow me anywhere. I'm not very exciting. If you'd like to read things that I write that have nothing to do with AV, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. But go by the website if you would, please. AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. You'll find this program and a host of others, including Jennifer's aforementioned AV Career Mastermind. Mitchell's been very busy this week. There's a brand new State of Control looking at where AI fits into the world of control and automation. I was very excited for this episode. I've been watching this for a while, so that's really, really fun one. For those watching on YouTube, you can subscribe to AVWeek podcast wherever you get your podcast. And if you're listening and you want to see what these fine folks look like, or you want to find Maldo's QR code, you can go over and watch us on YouTube. Either way, go the opposite direction. There we go. There's his QR code. But go by the website first, avnation.tv. That's avnation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That's all the time we have for AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
This is AV.
This
is AV Nation.
This is AV Nation.